Hello, this is Sarah with your Ride4Rufiji moment number 52 from Gander, Newfoundland. And we're in Matthew chapter 25. And I'll read the first part to you, the first part of the chapter. It says, "At that time, the kingdom of heaven will be like 10 virgins who took their lamps and went out to meet the bridegroom. 5 of them were foolish and 5 were wise. The foolish ones took their lamps but did not take any oil with them. The wise ones, however, took oil in jars along with their lamps. The bridegroom was a long time in coming, and they all became drowsy and fell asleep. At midnight the cry rang out, 'Here's the bridegroom, come out to meet him.' Then all the virgins woke up and trimmed their lamps. The foolish ones said to the wise, 'Give us some of your oil. Our lamps are going out.' 'No,' they replied, 'there may not be enough for both us and you. Instead, go to those who sell oil and buy some for yourselves.' But while they were on their way to buy oil, the bridegroom arrived. The virgins who were ready went in with him to the wedding banquet, and the door was shut. Later the others also came. 'Lord, Lord,' they said, 'open the door for us.' But he replied, 'Truly I tell you, I do not know you. Therefore keep watch, because you do not know the day or the hour.'" And I was recently doing a little bit of research about Jewish weddings at the time that Jesus would have been telling this parable, and it's really interesting. There's quite a lengthy betrothal period during which time the groom is preparing a home for his bride and making sure that he has a livelihood in order to provide for her. And when he has made himself ready to take her into his home, a feast is held at the home of the bride, and everyone in the village is invited to the feast, to the wedding feast. And so the bridegroom comes to the home of the bride to attend this banquet. After that time, he will take his bride back to his home, the home that he's made for her. And it's just such a beautiful picture of the coming of our Lord to take us to be with him and the preparations that he's making for us. And this parable just makes so much sense in the context of what I've been learning about Jewish weddings, because often the bridegroom would come from far off, and no one would know exactly the time that the bridegroom was coming. And so the wedding feast would be prepared, and the bridesmaids would wait for the bridegroom to come, and often it was a very long waiting period, and everyone in the village was anticipating the arrival of the bridegroom, all waiting to hear the announcement from the bridesmaids that he had arrived. And a lot of times he would come in the night, and so the bridesmaids would go through the streets with torches or lamps announcing that the bridegroom had come, and going with him and leading the people into the wedding feast. And so in this parable we have some bridesmaids who were prepared for the coming of the bridegroom and some who weren't. And it was just this morning that Grade and I were talking with some of our new friends about how heartbroken they were over a child who had grown up in the church and under godly teaching and had wandered from the faith. And I was thinking as I was reading this parable, what a challenge it is for us to pray for our children and the young people in our church that as they have been given lamps, and oftentimes we have provided for them the oil of truth to fill their lamps, to provide them with knowledge and discipline and godly teaching all of their lives. But there comes a time when they need to keep their lamps lit themselves. They need to light their lamps with their own faith and persevere to the end. They need to finish well. And this is something, as in the parable, that no one can do for another person. Each person is responsible on their own to keep their lamp lit. It also makes me think of the parable of the sower. how, the seed fell on the rocky ground, and how that reflects a person who hears the word and receives it with joy, but doesn't take root, and who is choked out by persecution and the world, and falls away and doesn't yield the harvest in the end, is not part of the harvest in the end. And it really challenged me to think about praying as a mother for our little ones to whom we give these precious lamps of truth, and to pray that the Lord would keep them and their lamps lit until the day that the bridegroom returns, because we don't know the day or the hour, and when he comes, there's no time to go and find oil, to buy oil. It's too late. When the Lord returns, those whose lamps are lit will be welcomed into the feast with him, and those whose lamps have gone out, they will not be invited into the feast. And so it's a challenge to prayer, for sure. As the chapter goes on, the parable of the talents is given by Jesus, and he talks about the master returning to find his servants having been faithful with what was given to them, and we all surely know the challenge that's being given there. But the last part has also, the last part of this chapter, as I was reading it, it just seemed so much more colored for me in the context of the Ride4Rufiji and the trip that we've been taking as a family. It talks about the return of the Son of Man, and the dividing of the sheep and the goats, and the king saying to the sheep, "Come, you who are blessed by my Father, take your inheritance, the kingdom prepared for you since the creation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me in. I needed clothes, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you looked after me. I was in prison, and you came to visit me." And the righteous will answer him, "Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you something to drink? When did we see you a stranger and invite you in, or needing clothes and clothe you? When did we see you sick or in prison and visit you?" And the king will reply, "Truly I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me." And I think how many times we have left homes and families, and I've thought how inadequate the hug and the thank you was that I left them with, and how I wish that I could in some way convey to them and thank them and reward them for their goodness to us, that we came to their home strangers and were warmly invited in, and we came hungry and thirsty after a long day, and we were given food and drink and treated with such kindness and generosity. And I think I wish that I could repay the goodness that has been done to me. And this parable reminds me, this passage rather reminds me that the Lord has indeed seen those deeds that have been done for us, and as much as they were done for us, they were done unto the Lord. And so I want to say to those who have been so good to us, thank you. And I am so excited for the day that you hear it from the Lord's mouth. Truly, whatever you did for the least of my brothers and sisters, you did for me. So, thank you. And I look forward to that on your behalf.